about 900 and between 920 and 980,000 students sit for their final year of school, grade 12, every year. And so we know this year, I think it's about 920,000. Last year, of that number, in a world that is increasingly complex and digital and so forth, only about 50,000 passed with a B and upper in mathematics, right? So basically, less than 3% of our matriculants passed with a B in maths in 2022. And this has been quite a consistent trend for the past 20 odd years. And yet some farm boy from Kwakwa decides he wants to study mathematics. Help us to understand where that comes from.
If I knew, I would be lying.
But surely, I mean, do you come from a family of undercover mathematicians?
Not quite. Not quite. I think it's a combination of a number of things. I think each one of us gets born with a particular set of attributes. And ours is to find those attributes and to cultivate them to be the best we can be. Second, we require an environment that can support the development of the nascent gifts and talents that we have. In my case, I was born with an orientation towards maths and science. I had a family that had a structure. And one of the greatest destructions of the apartheid movement at the time was that families were not together. So while farms were pretty rough in those days, but there was an integrity of a family structure. You had a father and mother. If there was a problem with a roof that gets blown away, in August, there's somebody who can fix it. There's a mother who can instill discipline. So the cultivation of the nascent gifts I had became much more possible because of that family structure that was there. The destruction of family structures is one of the things we have to deal with as a country, because you grow up in societies where, firstly, there are no role models. Second, there isn't an example of what a life should be of a young child. Thirdly, there are so many households that are child-headed, and the levels of poverty are quite high. So in my case, born with certain gifts, lucky that I grew up in a family where there were two parents, and of course we had siblings, and we were able to develop whatever gifts that we had. I mean, when we got to matric, we were taught by somebody who had matric, but there was a structure that could support.
So to just repeat, your teacher at school, their highest qualification was matric, and they were teaching you to get their highest qualification.
That's right. That's right.
Clock that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been the journey. So when I look at my own journey, my own level of achievement or lack of it, I always compare myself only to myself. Because the gifts and capabilities and abilities I have, I was born with. I was born into a family that helped me to have a particular structure that allowed me to be successful. So the only comparison is about the opportunity I had and what I've done with it. So I'd never compare myself with you, the professor, because you've done a lot better than I could ever do.
But I haven't had a Fulbright scholarship.
Okay,
I haven't been to UC Berkeley. I don't have a UC Berkeley on my CV as a degree.
Small little university on the west coast of the US.
Which is responsible for some of the big, giant tech companies that rule the world. So let's just kind of
take things... Has anyone watched Oppenheimer?
In perspective. Go for it, yeah.
The film?
Yeah.
Okay, this guy, the development of the atomic bomb was done in the Berkeley area. There's what is called a Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory. So the scientists were around there in my place. The laboratory is part of the university system. So unfortunately,
so did you contribute?
With education, you do get, unfortunately, you do get some of these destructive outcomes as much as technology is good.
But let's stay a little bit in Berkeley. In addition to furthering your education, did you learn anything else beyond the university that contributed to who you are today in that west coast of the United States?
I mean, obviously, I'm quite distraught at what's happened to the US now. A divided country, post-truth, a country that does not necessarily believe in the best of values, just given the epoch we are in now. So the America I went to in the early 80s, when some of you may not have been around.
Did you have to get a permission from some minister to leave the country?
Not quite.
So it was getting better.
Yeah, it was getting better. Middle 80s.
Middle 80s.
So coming from firstly a very restricted society, because South Africa was highly controlled. Information was very much limited. You could be imprisoned for reading an article that had the name ANC on it. Literally. For you, it may sound like hyperbole, but that is the truth. And very segregated. So the first time I get to Berkeley around August of '86, beautiful.
Just to put it in context, South Africa is burning in '86.
I know.
Right? So just understand where he's coming from. We've had a guy called South African problems will be solved by South Africans and not by foreigners. The Groot crocodile, right? He's had his Rubicon speech and it's taken us back, right? And so this is your context, and you leave and you go to that very strange part of the world. Continue.
So the first marvel was a society that is open and where nothing is taken necessarily as dogma. So you get into university, even the existence of God, as we assumed here in the country that was a given, was not a given anymore within a university system. So the openness to challenge, to think differently, to be yourself was probably the most important discovery of a different society. Obviously, the lack of racial, at least legalized or legally enforced racial separation was something that was particularly interesting as well. The level of technology that you got exposed to was interesting. So it was a completely new world, a world that could be discovered, a world that could be experienced, and it was fantastic. Still, I went out on a one-year ticket, so the only way you could go home was through an aircraft, and from time to time from San Francisco International Airport, you see an aeroplane go up and you say, goodness me, when do I ever get to go back home? I could only speak to my mom about once every week or every second week, and she had to walk from the village about 3-4 kilometers to get to a place where there was a telephone. So a contrast of a highly technologically advanced world, an open society, as we had it at that time, against a restricted, very segregated, and in fact a very oppressive country. So two worlds, but really an opportunity to experience life differently.